in front of other men as much as they used to. Like we used to take PE classes and we saw everybody else. Now there's less of that, and people, guys, can only judge by the porn they look at, and where the penises are bigger. So there's this whole article in New York Magazine about guys freaking out about the size of their things, which is kind of ridiculous, especially since there's a worldwide baby shortage, which means that penises are getting less use than ever.
They're getting less use and everything like that. Just really quickly on another note, and this is, we just had a TV show that was canceled. There was a TV show canceled a long time ago and everything like that. I'm going to play a clip from this particular gentleman because he actually blamed it on partially on greed and said that folks will be greedy as long as they're going to be greedy. And he also brought it in the context of race. So I'm going to play this clip and see what y'all got to say about the late, great Richard Pryor, who had this comment to say, and it's only about a minute and a half. But check this out, and then I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are, because I found this online earlier today.
What do you think that these executives are afraid you're going to do to white America?
Probably stop some racism.
Stop racism?
Yeah. I'm probably afraid of that, because then people don't hate each other, and people start talking to each other, and then they start talking to each other, they find out who's the problem.
Which is?
Greedy people.
Greedy people. I have a couple things I want to ask you there. Do you really think that some of the guys that you dealt with at NBC, no names, right? Because there's lawsuits for that too, that some of these guys really want to promote racism actively, or is it a subconscious?
I just think it's part of capitalism, is to promote racism, right? In order to make things work. If you feel better because you're white and you can get a job, you use that. I mean, I would.
Absolutely.
Say, I'm sorry, Jack, but shit, they say I'm white, I'm going to use this.
Right, absolutely.
Get this job, I'm hungry, But, and that separates people. So they keep people separated, and that keeps them from thinking about the real problem. That's as simple as I see it. Probably it's not that simple, but...
Now, all right, you and I are about the same age, right? We're in our mid-30s. How long is it going to take before guys who think like you, and I say guys who think like me, people who don't want to have racism in the country, people who don't want to be oppressing any minority, whatever it is, sexual, whatever minority, really get into positions of power and can change things?
You can't get in a position of power, it seems, if you think like that. It seems that the only time you get in a position of power is if you're like the people that are in power. To me, I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, people that get to become executives become like the people that were already executives.
I don't know, maybe...
They go in with good intentions, but it eats them up. It's like a cesspool, it just gets on you and it starts
eating. The system levels them.
Pretty soon it's all
gone. Is that
what
a cesspool sounds like?
So what is your thoughts around that? Because Richard Pryor brought up some things, and it seems like even today Donald Trump is kind of making his point and everything like that.
Yeah. So I would blame technology and AI, among other things, for creating people try to explain Trump by saying that voters feel economic anxiety. And certainly most Americans feel economic anxiety. Good jobs are going away under tech, under AI, and Trump came along and said there's just a limited number of things out there, and we have to stand up for our own people. And when Trump talks like that, he's by his talk, by his actions, he means white people. And so Trump has taken advantage of racial division. And then the Republicans, who like to project, which is whatever they're guilty of, they like to say the other side is guilty of, say that the Democrats are engaging in identity politics, that they try to attract voters by appealing to making specific appeals to different races and different genders and to trans people. And so, there's a lot of racism out there.
There's a lot of racism, but that's what Richard Pryor was talking about. Is something that was very popular in an old movie. I think it was made in the 80s or in the 90s called Wall Street and everything like that. But it's this notion that greed is good. I don't know if that's the attitude in other countries and everything like that. But Sasha, what's your take on this? Because this is something that's been going on for decades, this notion that greed is good and that we all should be as greedy as possible. That's kind of what the movie Wall Street was kind of hearkening toward, and all along those lines. But I don't know, I haven't been to that many other countries. If it's the same attitude in other parts of the world and everything like that. But what is your take on this notion, which is what Richard Broward was alluding to, that greed is good, and that's kind of the mantra of the West?
Well, just look at the U.S. stock market these days. What's driving stock market up? Two things. Trump is every day talking about peace deal or something else to prop up the market, and that alone wouldn't work. However, there is the biggest IPO of all time, SpaceX, coming out on June 12th. So how to convince people invest into this IPO? So you say, okay, today is, for example, Micron technology. Micron is way up from $300 a few months ago. It's now $825 maybe, or maybe even more. So what analysts, top analysts from the biggest investment houses, they're saying that the real price of Micron stock is $1,600. So people say, okay, so I can buy now at 825, 835, and it's gonna high to 1,600. Okay, I'm gonna go in and I'll buy as many shares as I can. So many other people do the same thing. So stock Micron is in a few days will be $900, maybe $1,000, right? So it's moving up. So people are making money, say, oh, now I have enough money to invest into the SpaceX IO. And this is combination of two factors. Trump is stoking market to go up, and investment houses are putting absolutely unrealistic projections on the future prices of stocks, enticing people to buy even more stocks. They are all going to be taken to cleaners exactly on September 13, next day after IPO. Okay, on IPO it will go much higher, and then you see people who are organizing this IPO, once the shares are floating and they're free trading, they have no more interest to prop up the stock. It just doesn't benefit them. The stock may go from $2,000 to $200. They don't care. They don't give a shit because they've already made their money. They made money in the morning of June 12th when IPO is finalized, filed, and actually accomplished.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everything like that.
So
I did see
here, I'm
this
going
last
to
week.
run a number here.
Yeah.
What percent of stocks are more valuable 1 year after an IPO, after they go public? Historically, 40 to 50% of stocks trade higher 1 year later. So it's a crapshoot. It's a coin toss. And
Yeah.
Half the time you're right, half the time you're not right. But there's another major issue that's going on. It's been going on for decades, even before the pandemic and everything like that. And that's this notion of fraud. I mean, that's partially tied into call centers. It's tied into a number of other things as well. But J.D. Vance, who, by the way, I understand says he's not running for president, is hosting state attorney generals at the White House for a fraud task force meeting. So if you were there with this, folks, and the corporate whistleblower centers are calling on Vice President J.D. Vance, what would your solution be to the widespread cases of fraud that are taking place throughout the country and the world? So this is for everybody. What would your advice be as he's going to host this task force meeting?
well, to restore some of the government agencies that were screwed up by Doge, where they just, so I would, and restore trust in the FBI. The current administration has been attacking in the publicly questioning the integrity of the FBI, denying them resources, reducing the IRS is broken, right? So which is they don't have enough staff to do proper audits, to do proper customer service. So this means that rich people's tax fraud can flourish. So I mean, after Trump is done being president, the government will have to be rebuilt to restore competence in these areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. If they're also saying that Trump is fuming at Congress and court for holding up his ballroom. So this was actually reported earlier today in the Washington Post. So I know that he had the Attorney General file request to resume ballroom construction. So it looks like it had gotten stopped briefly because of that White House shooting that took place about a day ago and everything like that. So yeah, it looks like it's on hold, but I'm sure he'll find a way to continue building it, just like he'll continue building his arch and everything else that he's got on his mind to build. So what's our take on this? Because apparently he's a very hot at Congress and the courts for holding up his
It's
ballroom.
not clear that that $1 billion ballroom is financed. So Trump says that some of the financing will have to come from the government because that's for security. Then security experts say that out of the $1 billion, that only 100 million is needed to build a secure underground bunker system. So it's not clear where the money's coming from, but he's moving ahead anyway.
And he's moving ahead, full speed ahead, and everything like that. I think Sharif left is going to try to get to him and everything, but hopefully he'll come back. But if not, we'll see him tomorrow. But Iran's president orders a reopening of international internet access. So I guess the folks in Iran are going to try to have internet access, but then there was a recent attack, so maybe they're going to shut it down again as well.
Iran shut down the internet back in, I think, January because the population was rioting in the streets, and the government wanted to make it harder for people who wanted to fight the government to coordinate with each other. It was political suppression on the part of the government.
Well, it looks like you have made a prediction sometime back, and it looks like the prediction may be coming true and everything like that, because it looks like Tulsi Gabbard may be taking the exit route and everything like that. And I think that a few weeks ago, you had predicted that she would be the next person to hit the chopping blocks and everything like that. So has she officially get the chopping blocks? It looks like it's still
Well, she claims that she's leaving because her husband is sick with bone cancer and she wants to spend time with him. Other people are more skeptical about her reasons for leaving.
Yeah. So who's next on the hit list? I think it was either you or Sasha predicted Tulsa. So far y'all are on a track for being successful in your prediction. So if she's gone, who's the next person that's going to fall from?
I think people are amazed that Kash Patel has kept his job. And then Hegseth, I mean, if as the war continues with the U.S., if the U.S. doesn't get anything it wants, then Hegseth could be a convenient person to fire to divert blame from Trump.
Yeah, definitely want to divert blame from Trump and everything like that. But there's a lot of things going on in the world. I'm seeing this very weird story. It's almost as bad as the elephant yesterday, Rick, and everything like that, where people were trying to figure out how you missed an elephant. I think Jim Eade was asking that question. But apparently in South Carolina, because there was some strong winds and everything like that, a woman was killed by a patio umbrella while dining in a South Carolina restaurant. So apparently the restaurant must have bludgeoned her or something along those lines. But yeah, that's saying that's what was actually the cause of her death. And I'm thinking like that's almost like the rare case of lightning hitting you and everything like that.
We're a big country. We have 1/3 of a billion people, and horrible, weird stuff is going to happen at random to people.
Yeah, because I forget what they say the odds are of getting hit by lightning, but it's supposed to be ridiculously low. But there are people that get hit.
The odds of getting hit by lightning aren't that low. My mom got hit by she was in our house. Our house got hit by lightning. It knocked her to the floor. It knocked over our dog, and it killed our freezer. Colorado has mountainous terrain. It has a lot of storms, and yeah, people, it's not, it's compared to a lot of other freak occurrences. Getting hit by lightning is not that uncommon.
I remember even as a youngster I think I was coming home might have even been to my dad's house, which he still owns and everything like that. But I remember the strike hitting directly in front of me and everything like that. So I was not hit, and I was far enough away not to feel the burn, but I was also close enough to know that strike was actually
Yeah,
relatively.
I had the same thing happen in Albuquerque. I was driving by an empty lot, and lightning hit a scrub bush, a big old like tumbleweedy bush right in front of me in the lot. And it's like, it was like Moses in the burning bush, except I didn't receive the 10 Commandments.
They did get the 10 Commandments. It looked like Yosemite National Park is facing traffic and parking delays. So one of America's, they're saying, most beautiful national parks is now facing Disneyland level crowds. So I guess a lot of people are over there, and it was backed up during the holiday weekend, and it was testing the no reservation policy because they had this notion that you didn't have to have reservations and all along those lines. So I guess it's one of the places that's very popular and everything like that. So that's another story that I see in the news. And also, we've got a new president at Purdue University. So Mitch Daniels has been named as the interim president. It looks like he's returning on July 1st and everything like that as Chang departs. So that is a major university here.
Did you mention that we're having elections in 6 states today?
I did mention the elections earlier, but please give us more details, because I know that Georgia has got a election denier that is the front runner. So I didn't get to that story and everything like that, because there's a gentleman that is an election denier. I think that's from the.
We should clarify what an election denier is. A Trump lunatic who says that Trump really won the 2020 election, that elected Biden. So, and those people, it's 6 years later, and they're not going away. A lot of them, they're still out there being with their bullshit.
And
in
apparently he's
Texas,
the GOP front runner.
yeah. Good luck to them, I guess. Georgia's pretty purple. Georgia tends to, vote for good people because they're equally balanced between Republicans and Democrats. So if a jackass is running against a reasonable person, there's a good chance that Georgia will elect the good person. Texas, on the other hand, they're having their Republican primary today. And it's for senator, it's Ken Paxton versus John Cornyn. Cornyn's been in the Senate for, 24 years. Paxton's a terrible guy. He's the state attorney general. He's been under investigation for securities fraud for 15, 20 years. I mean, he did a lot of bad. He did a lot of corruption trying to cover up a blatant sexual affair he was having. He was impeached by the Texas state legislature. He used his political clout to not be kicked out of office. But he's a dirtbag, but he's endorsed by Trump. So he will probably beat Cornyn, who's just a run-of-the-mill Republican politician. Not a terrible guy, except that he supports some of Trump's terrible policies, but just a regular guy who's been in politics forever. And so Paxton will probably win, and then he'll go up against the Dem, who's Tallarico, who's a pastor. And in the polls, they are they're tied at this point, though it's still 6 months away to the general. But if it's Paxton versus Tallarico, it's an adulterous, corrupt scumbag versus a kind of mild-mannered, decent pastor kind of guy. And we'll see, if people vote for the jackass, because
we'll see what happens in that regards and everything like that. Hey, Sasha, there's a couple of business newses that are out there. I wish that Kim was here, because I know that she does a lot of visiting. She's been a couple of times to Sarah Week and everything like that, which she says is a major oil conference and everything along those lines. But apparently BP, which I know is a thing that folks in terms of energy invest in regularly, but apparently they're ousted their chair, Albert Manifold, in a surprise move, citing unnamed governance issues, and apparently they are thinking about that, so that might impact their stock, in addition to the fact of the policies that are going on. So it might even be those policies that are costing him his job. more gas executives losing their jobs because of these governance issues or whatever they may be and everything? Because apparently that just happened today.
I wouldn't cry for this oil executives or gas executives losing their jobs. That's the last thing what I would worry about. And I I think in these days, all these conferences are absolutely useless because Trump, with one word, can change price of oil and gas and do completely different policies and so on. So all these people, they're just scamming for money. They're selling participation tickets for a few $100s, if not thousands of dollars or so on. This is just a money-making machine. They're completely useless idiots.
Yeah, there's a lot of those conferences. I actually had a friend of mine that called me yesterday and asked if I was going to a conference that is celebrating its 30th year this Wednesday, but the network isn't sending me, and neither is the Haytide Heritage Center. So I don't think I'll be going to the American Black Film Festival and everything like that. But it is celebrating its 30th anniversary, and will start this Wednesday. They've got some big names like I think Regina King and others will be there, and all along those lines. But like you said, it is not a cheap event to go to and everything like that. So even if I was having the resources to go, I don't know that I necessarily would go.
Somebody is making money and you don't need to help them. Stay home.
You can make your own money down there in South Beach, because I think that's been going on in the South Beach for years, and they got all kinds of corporate sponsors and everything like that. So I'm sure enough people will be down there enjoying the sun and the fun, even though it might be some rain down there, because I know those pop-up storms happen all the time. Eli, we started this network because of the pandemic, my idea or their idea and everything along those lines, and they were having all these conversations around what was going on in the pandemic and all in that space. But now Eli Lilly, which is another major company, is acquiring Curvo, Limitech, and Vaccine Company and everything like that. So they've announced 3 acquisitions to build an infectious disease portfolio. So it looks like they're buying 3 vaccine developers. So I guess they're going to have the hold on this particular industry, even though Pfizer and others have been very much in the vaccine space as well, in the infectious disease space all along. So what's our take on this? Because if they've got these 3 companies, wouldn't they have a chokehold or a monopoly on some of these developments? I mean, I know Pfizer is still a major player, but it looks like they might be a more major player.
Well, they figured out that something may happen somewhere, and they will be right there with possible treatment. They're going to make up a lot of money if that's the case. And other than that, they have so much money that you cannot even imagine. They can buy every hour and a half another company, and it doesn't matter to their cash positions. So it's inconclusive. I mean, I wouldn't give a damn about this.
Well, speaking of that and everything, and maybe Rick, you've got some thoughts, because I know Jacoby, when he's here, has talked about the nature of some of these electric vehicles, and apparently Ferrari has unveiled Lucy, the brand's first fully electric vehicle. So the market has spoken, and Ferrari shares fall after car maker unveiled its first fully electric vehicle. And we all know Ferrari is known as one of those high-end kind of companies and everything.
So the trouble with, when I was a kid, I used to build plastic models of cars. I loved, cars, right? And then I got to Los Angeles and I saw who was driving these fancy cars, and I became less in love with fancy cars because often, those cars are being driven by dickheads. This Tesla truck, for instance, like, if you look inside a Tesla truck to see who the driver is, like, often, much of the time, that guy's a dickhead, right? And there are other makes. We used to have Hummers on the streets, Humvee vehicles, and those guys were dickheads. And so the deal is, for a Ferrari, often drivers are rich dickheads who don't give a shit about, like, electric vehicles, right? They want a fancy car with big engine noise. They want to, be attractive to the ladies at the club with the little tight skirts and everything, and they could give a shit about electric vehicles. So
I want to tell you something about interesting about Hummers. In about 2005 to 2010, I used to live in apartment condominium, and I noticed that there are a lot of Hummers are being parked. And I was quite surprised. Why would people, it's a respectable community, why would people, mostly older people, buy Hummers? How come? So I started to investigate for myself just what's going on. And what I found is that this Hummers is ever moving. Let's say there were 5 Hummers. So in a week time, there would be the same 5 Hummers, but different, not the same. And I found out that most of the people who drive these Hummers and buying and selling them are Muslims sending them to Africa. This is why there were proliferation of Hummers in that particular condominium. And then a month or two later, the management stopped giving them permissions to park Hummers in that garage, and Hummers disappeared. So no owners of units in that condominium, no one ever owned Hummers. They were all purchased by
Those
most of
numbers used to be somewhat popular even among.
Yeah, so
What?
with the Ferrari EV, I would bet that the stock recovers over the next, as people I bet you a Ferrari EV is nice. It looks good. I expect that eventually your Ferrari buyer will decide, this is a good car. And even though I'm not a fan of EVs, I like this thing. So
Yeah. If you will be lucky to find a charging station, then your Ferrari is okay.
You
I
got about that
remember
charger.
my relative from Pittsburgh. No, not from Pittsburgh, sorry, around Philadelphia somewhere. He was driving last summer to Toronto to visit me and my family. And he got stuck around Niagara Falls. And it's not too far from the border. And his battery was down, so he wanted to recharge his battery. He spent 2 days in that region trying to find the battery, waiting for a recharge, and then continue his way. It was first time that he ever used EV.
So a certain kind of guy, a young guy, maybe a guy who lifts weights, maybe a guy who's got full arm tattoos. He likes a noisy car. He likes like a Dodge Charger where you hear it coming blocks away. And what's crazy about modern noisy cars is often the sound is computer generated. It doesn't come from the engine. It comes from some kind of speaker attached to an engine noise simulator, so you can have a sexy, noisy young guy car, but it's bullshit.
And Hummers used to be very popular among certain elite folks. A lot of the athletes and entertainers used to like Hummers. I mean, they're not always the safest cars, because I did know a gentleman that was in that class. I think he was a Bell bomber, and I think he had a Hummer, and this was decades ago, and he was literally killed in one of those drive-by shootings that was infamous here in North Carolina and all along those lines, because I think he might have been involved in maybe some gang activity as well. But I do remember that incident because he was known for driving around in his Hummer. So it is popular among some folks that are in certain classes and everything like that. And speaking of classes, I did see another interesting story. I think tomorrow for some people, because none of us are spring chickens here in this particular episode, and all along those lines, is going to be the day that some people will be getting their Social Security payments. And there's also like a list of when those payments will be coming out. So are you getting your check on tomorrow, or have you already got yours, Rick, and everything along those lines?
So I'm 66, and you can start taking Social Security payments at 62, but every year you wait. In fact, let me pull this down. I've got it right here. It tells me how much more I get per month if I wait. So if I took it now, I'd get about $2,800 a year. If I wait till next year, $29,000. If I wait till I'm 67, 31. If I wait till 68, nearly 3,300. If I wait all the way till I'm 70, so right now I get 2,900. But if I waited till I'm 70, 4 more years, I get 3,800, $1,000 more a month, because it's all based on lifetime payments. It's
And what about if you wait until you're 85?
No, well, so 70 is the longest you can wait and
All right.
have it go up in value. But the deal is, it's break even is supposed to be 82. It's supposed to be, regardless of when you start taking the payments, they're all supposed to add up to the same amount if you live and then die at 82. If you're planning on living past 82, you want to wait as long as possible, because those you'll be getting bigger checks for the rest of your life.
We have some shocking news coming from the world of television and all along those lines. I guess I'm being slightly sarcastic, but apparently a longtime late night reporter is claiming that Trump was personally involved in canceling Stephen Colbert and everything like that. And I did hear a quote yesterday where he said this was the beginning of the end of late night TV. So it sounds like he's going after the rest of the folks as well. But yeah, there's a reporter that is saying that he was personally involved in this notion. So as one that worked in this field with Jimmy Kimmel, what is your thoughts on this? Because it looks like he is targeting the late night crowd.
So, okay, Kimmel himself has been quoted even before all this stuff happened. Like a couple of years ago, Kimmel said, if you look at the trends in ratings, late night is going away. And Kimmel said in 10 years, you might have one late night show left, because the social structures and the technological structures that made late night possible, they're going away. That people have a zillion alternatives to staying up. In much of the country, you have to stay up till 11:35 to see the monologue on a late night show.
Mm-hmm.
And people have alternatives to doing that. They can watch it on YouTube whenever. They can watch a zillion other things. Johnny Carson got over 10 million viewers a night back when, just huge numbers that are bigger than the viewership for all the shows right now, because people have other stuff to do. And so network TV in general, primetime shows, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, their ratings decline at least 1% a year as people turn to other forms of entertainment.
That makes sense and everything like that.
So, and late night suffers even worse. So even before Trump trying to kick off Kimmel and Colbert, late night was suffering the same declines, but even more severe than primetime programming.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is for both of you. Do you think, because I've seen an article on, it might have been a TED Talk or something like that the House needs just one vote to impeach a president, then the Senate can remove him? So I know he's been impeached twice. And what is the chances that he's going to get impeached a third time? And what is the chances that he's going to get removed, or that the House is going to cause him to be removed? So maybe that's why Vance is saying he doesn't want to run, because he's already going to be president. So what's y'all's take on this?
So if the Democrats take over the House, they will almost certainly impeach him, because Trump got impeached twice his first time as president. Once for encouraging fraud in a call to Ukraine, and once for encouraging the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. But he's been an even bigger dick this time around. He's done and so the Dems will almost certainly impeach him. But the Senate, he got 50 the last time that Trump was impeached. Impeachment's the first step. Impeachment just says that you have to go on trial in the Senate for the shit you've done, Mr. President. And the last trial he had, and this trial is really a half-assed thing. It's not really like a trial. But anyway, the Senate then votes on, is this guy guilty enough of badness to be kicked out? And Trump, the more people voted to kick him out of office than any other president in history, because there have been a couple other impeachments. 57 out of 100 senators said kick him out, but you need 67, 2/3 of the Senate, to kick him out. So Trump will get impeached again, probably in 2027, and then it'll go to the Senate for a vote. And probably 53 senators will vote to kick him out. Nowhere nearly enough, unless Trump falls apart anymore and is obviously insane or has dementia. He will probably survive again.
Well, he has violated the Constitution on more than one occasion. He has done so many things just on his own will and choice, as opposed to going through proper protocol, and no one has done anything but call him out on it. I mean, at what point? And then we have proven without a doubt that it doesn't matter what he does wrong, people are still going to elect him as president. And that makes for a bad situation for the good people of this country who want a better country. But I mean, we've got detainment centers where the ICE has detained 4 women recently, and they've been found beheaded. Now ICE is blaming gangs and cartel, but you don't hear anything about this on the news. But 4 women from Puerto Rico were detained by ICE, supposedly deported, but they've been found without they've been found decapitated. They have not released their names yet because it's just a devastating situation for the families. But there's been no responsibility taken by ICE or anyone in deporting any of these people, or detaining them properly, or properly processing them through the system as they should be. There's no accounting of where anyone is, and there's no accountability for losers who are causing the unnecessary deaths of a lot of innocent people.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Let's just say impeachment hasn't come fast enough.
Can we go back to late night for a quick second?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Stephen back.
All right. So on social media, MAGA people were making fun. There was a picture of the entire staff of Colbert's Late Show saying goodbye, which is about 200 people. And MAGAs were making fun of, that it takes 200 people. How come it takes 200 people to make this lousy show? And then a bunch of people were saying, well, back in Johnny Carson's days, it only took 50 people to make the show. And that's true, that a late night show, it takes 200 people to do it now, compared to the Tonight Show in the 90s and the 80s. And that is because late night shows are better shows now. They're way more entertaining. Now, Johnny Carson was maybe you could argue he was the greatest, the wittiest late night host ever, though, I'd argue for, Jon Stewart and Kimmel and Colbert and all these guys, they're really fast mentally and they're funny. But anyway, Johnny Carson was great. But all he did was he came out and he told jokes, and then he talked to people on the couch. If you watched Johnny Carson's shows now, you'd find them boring compared to the shows now, because Carson only seldom did produced bits. He didn't do like video clips. He didn't do a lot of man on the street. There was no kind of photoshopping and AI and CG to add like entertaining. There was just him talking and him talking to other people. And, if he maybe once a week did a bit like the Magnificent Karnak, where he would, do a little bit of a shtick. But the shows, the late night back then, he was the only game in town, and he didn't have to do as much. Then the new guys come along, Letterman comes along, and Letterman starts doing crazy bits. Like Letterman puts on a suit made of Velcro and jumps off a mini trampoline and sticks to the wall. Or Letterman goes up to the roof of the theater and throws watermelons off the roof. which was a throwback to Steve Allen in the 50s. But anyway, the shows have 3-4 times as many people because the shows have to do more to entertain us. But even so, it's kind of a losing battle because there were 3 networks during Johnny Carson's time, and only one of them, NBC, put on a show worth watching. But now there's a zillion other things to watch.
Was it 4 if you count PBS?
Yeah, but who's going to watch PBS at 11 at night? It probably is off the air by 11 at night.
That's true.
And true, it was at 11 at night. We watched the national anthem and the flag. But I want to add to what you're saying, because a lot of people don't realize the liability of these talk show hosts, and even though they are comedy and entertainment, there's still a lot of facts have to be cleared and checked. There's just so much that goes on behind the scenes before they deliver a lot of their content. Now, it's not just about the ability to deliver. Jimmy Fallon, one of my favorites, he gets on and sings, and they have, songs that are rewritten, and it is just constant live entertainment. So, all of them are great. I enjoy watching every one of them, right down to Seth Meyers, who I highly, highly respect as well. I think what happened to Steve was maybe, unfortunate, but also maybe a blessing for him, because, maybe he can live a normal life for a while, because it's hard, as Mark would attest, and you guys, to deliver a daily show is not an easy task.
It was like being a doctor, except we didn't help anybody. The hours, you were kind of on alert all the time, looking. I was desperate to get jokes on the air. I was always scrambling, and other people were better than me at jokes. And then so if I couldn't get a joke on the air, I'd try to at least get a fact in there that you could build jokes from. And I got in trouble a lot for fucking up facts. Like I in my desperation, I'd be like, "Oh, this is," I'd throw it out there, and then the fact blows up, turns out to not be exactly what I said, it's a lot of people working their asses off to make the most entertaining show possible.
And there's the musicians, there's
but Colbert already has his next job lined up. He is, for director Peter Jackson, he is writing the next Lord of the Rings movie. Turns out Colbert is an expert on Tolkien. He loves Tolkien, and the author of the original novelist who wrote, and he's writing the next Lord of the Rings.
I'm happy that he has got a new journey, because I believe that he was pushed out for all the wrong reasons, but he took it so gracefully. And I think that, I pray that it's going to be good.
I keep talking about this, but that Colbert is a godly man. He is a huge Catholic. Like a guy who practices Christian values. Ditto for Kimmel, which is so paradoxical, because MAGA accuses coastal elites, media, famous people, of being like debauched and engaging in the sex and drugs and who knows what, and it's so reversed, where Kimmel and Colbert at the very least are like good, like charitable, upstanding family people, and then the guy who's supposed to be the moral exemplar of America, this Trump guy, is just not the best guy.
Well, we know Zelensky was a comedian before he became president, so who knows? And Colbert has quite a childhood that he survived when his father and two brothers were
Yeah, he had
killed in a plane
huge
crash.
tragedy.
And right, and it was just tragedy, and he overcame a lot of those things. I think there were 10 children in the family at the time, and so you know, he when you look at his life, he could have chose another route easily, but instead he always took the high road. He has always taken the high road, and I wish him well, and I feel like that he will outlast Trump in more ways than life. And I think that eventually people will come back and see the grace that he has, and maybe he will run for president. I love the fact that all of these late night comedians have united and they do skits together. I love it. It is a highlight of my day when I see them together doing something.
Yeah, because they're funny together. That's one of the
Yes.
things that made Johnny Carson's Tonight Show great. Is the Tonight Show under Carson was 90 minutes, which meant that he could, instead of having two guests, Carson could have four guests, and they would stick around. They'd stack up on the couch next to him, and if you had two or three funny people like Don Rickles, Burt Reynolds, they would stay for the whole show, and then you'd have 2, 3, 4 funny people bouncing stuff off of each other, or you'd have one straight person, like one kind of rando guest. Like the fourth guest was also often somebody like some little old lady who ended up in the news, and then you had like 3 funny people like bouncing stuff off of one straight person, and it was really a lot of fun. So
It
when you
sounds like a
put
lot
these
of fun.
late
Ken,
night
you gotta
hosts
get ready to wrap
together-
up because
yeah,
I got the other show.
We're going to have to bounce.
okay.
With Sasha, because
Thank
actually
you for
I was
that,
already
Rick.
over there on the other side.
Yep. But make sure you watch Sasha's update today, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, take care.
Bye.
Bye.